Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining the session arranged by IISER Berhampur. So, IISER Berhampur is a club of our college. It's just an acronym for Innovation, Incubation, and Entrepreneurship Cell. At IISER, we aim to nurture young and innovative minds to promote the spirit of entrepreneurship in its circle. We like to promote the spirit of entrepreneurship in its circle. We organize interactive talk sessions with entrepreneurs and do workshops and competitions and seminars and other exciting events to provide uh, corporate and industrial exposure to students at a very early age in college. So like we want this session to be a very interactive and like light session. So today today I just want to brief you about the series that our clubs has been going. This is the What's After BSMS. So this is the fifth episode of our ongoing series, What's After BSMS, started by our club to share the experience of other fellow IISER alumnus about the journey after BSMS. So today we have Dr. Amit Nag, a senior consultant at McKinsey Company, Dr. Shashi Bhushan Sinha, component research engineer at Intel Corporation, and Yusuf Jameel, associate scientist at Project Drawdown. So, uh, welcome everyone, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you all hear me? Just want to check
Yeah.
if the voice is going. Okay.
Yeah. So I like to thank you all for joining, taking your time from your busy schedule for joining. So I would like to all of you to tell about your journey and your careers. Yes, sir. The stage is yours. You can start.
Nice to meet you, Shashi and Yusuf. Long time no see.
Same here.
Uh, but uh, but hey guys, so let me keep this introduction really short. And personally, I would like this to be very conversational. So okay, hey, I'm Amit. I graduated IISER Kolkata more than 10 years ago, back in 2012. The journey so far has been quite great. I mean, I did my PhD in physics from University of Maryland. And after that, I was heavily involved with a very small startup. It was sort of a joint startup between like three people. I was one of them. I did so that was my first experience doing data science, but also sort of like business building and all that. As you can imagine, there were three people, so everyone was doing everything. So I did that for about 2.5 years, and then I joined McKinsey as a consultant, where I sort of play a dual role. I do business consulting, which is sort of like classic strategy consulting of, businesses come to you with a problem and you try to solve that, and that gives me a big exposure into the industry. But at the same time, I try to keep up, doing, trying to solve some data science problems which are relevant to the industry.
Thank you, sir. I guess this is
Hi.
can start.
Yep. Hi, I'm Sashi, and I was along with Amit and Yusuf at IISER Kolkata, and back in 2007 to 2012. And trust me, we were more confused about our future back then than you are currently. That I can guarantee. And after the 5 years at IISER, I was in the chemical sciences field. And after that, I went straight to the conventional route of doing a PhD. And I wanted to do that also at that time. So I went to Yale University, did my PhD in inorganic chemistry, spent like 6 years there, satisfied with the PhD. And then after that, me personally, I was very sure I didn't want to go into pure academia. And so I wanted to stay in like either industrial research or very applied research, like in national labs and stuff like that. We can talk about that more later. And so luckily I landed a job at Intel, and initially I was in more towards the, as you know, Intel produces a lot of chips and also like it designs its own chips. So I was more towards the production side, but since last year I'm back to the roots where I can do more of my grad school chemistry and work in the labs. So I'm in a team called Component Research Division at Intel, And basically, it's a very small division here, and we work on to ensure that the semiconductor industry keeps making like new innovations for the next like decades or so. And so it's a very small group in a company which is like 100,000 people. We are just like 200 people, but we try our best to ensure the future of chips is still in place. And in this job role, I actually kind of get to do basic chemistry, like just working in a lab, doing reactions in a beaker, and but everything is more from an industrial standpoint. And that's where I am currently. So 5 years IISER, 6 years PhD, and then 4 years into my job. And I'm very glad to meet all of you. And hopefully, with this conversation, I'll get to know more about the IISER Berhampur, and I'm happy to answer any questions which you all have. And yep, that's all from me, Yusuf.
Yeah, thanks, Shashi, and thanks, Amit, and thanks,
Thank you. Thank you, Cesar.
IISER, for organizing it. So, just to echo what Shashi said, I think you all are in a much better position right now compared to what we were back in 2012. And my background was in earth sciences, which I think only IISER Kolkata offers right now. I am not sure if other IISER still offers or offers geological sciences. So, I was typical a 7-pointer in my IISER days. And then we were told that if you take earth sciences, you will get big jobs in Schlumberger and oil companies. And that's what motivated a lot of us to take earth sciences. But to cut the long story short, none of us got that job. So eventually, most people went to either do MBA or they went to teach in coachings in India, and some of us pursued a PhD, from Europe or from the US. So I joined the University of Utah after my PhD to pursue water resources, hydrology. I finished my PhD in 2018. And then I was briefly, working at MIT for 2 years, but it was not a permanent position. And then I switched to a small think tank called Project Drawdown, where we really work right now on addressing climate change. And my role really is to do fundamental research on, finding the best solutions on climate change, and also interacting with media, with politicians, with head of the states. I was at COP27 just a few months ago, where I was meeting with ministers. I even met a few prime ministers from different countries and talking about climate solutions, and in general, also advising, different companies on what path they can take to address climate change within their own framework. So, just in the interest of time, I think it will be nice to open to questions from you all, and, and we can all talk about our journey.
Thank you, Yusuf sir. That is some serious achievements. And yeah, and I'd like to formally introduce ourselves also. I'm Prithviraj Devnath, and this is my co-host Rutuja Jordar. We are second year BSMS student in IISER Berhampur, and now I think the questions will start. Rutuja, please carry on.
Hello, sir. Myself, Vidrojit Jwadda from IISc. Now, we have a lot of questions here that we asked among ourselves. So, the first question I would like to ask everyone here, every speakers, that what are the job opportunities in industrial-based research other than academia? Actually, this is the most asked question here. So, we may carry on from alphabetically. Amit sir.
Sure. First of all, I have a question in turn, and a request. So first of all, please don't add a sir or anything. Please use my first name. I would prefer that, and please don't use doctor. I have personally never used doctor myself, right? So you won't find Dr. Amit Nag anywhere. So that's a request. And what's the audience? Is it mostly BSMS students?
Audience are mostly BSMS students, mainly first years and second year students, and third year mainly BSMS students.
Okay, mainly BSMS students and first years and second years.
Mainly
Okay.
among them.
Okay. Thank you for that. So as far as research is concerned, I can speak. So even though I'm not doing any research after my PhD, definitely not applying my PhD research at all. I can speak to what I know based on how I've seen what I've seen my colleagues do, right? So and I will just speak to physics, right? What I know of physics research, like what I've seen my colleagues do, right? So in physics, I mean, I studied condensed matter. I particularly studied topological quantum computation. I have seen a lot of my colleagues go into quantum computing startups, right? Either as hardware or like, software even, right? So software in quantum computing involves actually having an understanding how quantum mechanics works and how you can leverage it to write kernel systems and all those things, right? So quantum computing right now is where usual computing was, like the silicon-based computing was in 1950s and 1960s. So you can imagine there is a lot of opportunity for theoretical physicists to do what the computer scientists were doing in 50s and 60s. And what they were doing was essentially writing kernels, writing routines, basic routines, how to, do matrix manipulation, for example, right? So basic, very low level compute, like writing software, but for quantum computers is where the opportunity is right now. And that's where if you have a theoretical bend, you can leverage that to use it. On the hardware side, there is a lot of opportunity as well, as you can imagine, right? We don't have a working large-scale quantum computer yet. So if that's going to be a reality in the future, it's going to need a massive effort on the hardware side as well. So that's quantum computing. I've seen a lot of people move into optics side in terms of, metrology, which is like measurement, like high precision measurement of things, using lasers to do various kinds of things. I have seen some of my friends go into communication aspect of quantum communication. There are a lot of startups, especially in US, doing that. What else? And of course, a lot of physicists have gone to work in Intel, but I will defer it to Shashi to speak about Intel and what kind of colleagues he has over there. But yeah, over to Shashi.
Yeah, on that cue. So the question is, can you repeat the question again?
The question is that what are the opportunities in industrial research other than academia, actually?
Okay. Yeah. So the question has to be answered at what stage you are looking for the opportunity. If you are looking for an opportunity after masters, then it's a different, and after PhD, it becomes a little bit different. So if you're looking for after masters, then potentially the chances that you'll find an opportunity outside of India is not very great, because the it's an uphill slope, right? You'll have to find an industry which is outside of India, where all of you, whoever is graduating, wants to continue industrial research, say with Intel, but not in India. So that would be really challenging, because you'll have to prove that you are worth to the company to spend dollars or money to bring them from India to somewhere else, right? So if you're looking for industrial opportunities right after masters, I think India is like kind of booming with startups, right? And if you are, say, whatever Amit describes, a physicist. So I think if you're in maths and physics, then you can do a lot of applied stuff, because if you're in these two fields, then you get to do a lot of coding, and you're inherently your data analysis skills is a little bit better, right? Because you understand like numbers in general. So there are a lot of opportunities I can personally see. Even 10 years back, I would say that they might be a little bit more difficult, but now I definitely see a lot of opportunities coming up in all the areas which Amit mentioned, plus the world of data science as well. I personally know one of my colleagues, and I think Gandhi, if you might remember Amit and Yusuf, like he is now into data science even after his PhD. He just didn't want to continue with like hardcore research. And that is just one example where I'm like thinking like these opportunities have opened up in India. But say now if you are a chemist, like I know a lot of chemists, and I've been in chemistry background since over a decade. So I can speak very particularly about the individual branches of chemistry also. If you have done, like, say, doesn't matter, like organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, or theoretical chemistry, there are definitely job opportunities. But the quality of the job which I have seen in my whole life in an industry is different for a master's versus an experienced person. Like, you don't get to lead a project if you just have a master's. That's just the truth of industry. Mostly you will be helping out a leader who is like a project manager or leading a project with the lab work or with all the other sorts of analysis that you have to do. So if you're looking for a job straight out of like 5 years bsms into an industry having a chemistry background, of course there are a lot of like pharmaceutical industries in India. Then there are research labs, like all the big pharmaceutical companies have also some research labs all over India, like say GSK, for example. They do need people who will run the column chemistry. Like, not everyone is going to, they need people to do that. Say companies like Shell. I know Yusuf mentioned that none of us got jobs in Slumberger and Shell, but Shell has a research center in Bangalore, and they do need chemists for general. And so you'll have to kind of look out for those opportunities and see what your strengths are and then apply. And but I think later on we might talk. Internships can help a lot for you to figure out what those opportunities are and what your strengths are. Like being in a college, just doing like a textbook study and doing some projects sometimes doesn't introduce you to your strengths. That's why I particularly felt I figured out what my strengths are only when I went for internships, because then you're exposed to new people, you're out of your comfort zone, and then you know what you're good or bad at. And that all being said, if you have a master's, now if you're a take ahead 5 6 more years, now you have a PhD. Now you the it's a good and a bad thing both. The good thing is that you're really good at one particular thing. You really know how to solve problems, you know how to teamwork, and you might be an expert in one field of your, like, say, chemistry. That gives you an upper edge to find jobs both in academia and industry. But then sometimes in industry, you become limited with what you are an expert at. However, if they are looking, the opportunities just opens up more because people are more receptive in industries to hire PhDs, because they know that, okay, this particular person has proven himself that he can, like, think quantitatively, think intuitively. He has problem solving skills. He or she, they have problem solving skills, and so they can apply their skills as well. And then, and also, if you have like so many years of PhD, and say if you publish papers and whatnot, that gives a hiring manager or a person who is hiring you to probe more into your background, right? They can actually, they have something to tell. Okay, I can see that this person definitely knows how to do natural product synthesis, for example. And say if I'm hiring for a pharmaceutical company, then you would be in my candidate pool, which might not be the case if you just have a master's degree. So the short answer now to end my answer is that yes, there are job opportunities, but you need to know what you are good at to be suitable for that job opportunities, even after a PhD or after a master's. Yep. Yusuf, you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I mean, great points from both you and Amit. And absolutely, one word answer is yes, you can. And I'm assuming that most of the people who ask these questions are thinking about pursuing a PhD from abroad or even in India. Let's say they want to pursue a PhD from in Europe or in the US. All the friends that I know from IISER Kolkata, from IISER Pune, our seniors, our juniors, very few of them have ended up in academia. Most of them are doing applied research. They are in industry with very good jobs, So really, there is a lot of opportunity outside academia. And the fact is, 90% or probably more than 90% of the people who do PhD, they don't end up in academia. They end up in industry, they end up in research lab, they end up in a startup, in all kind of things. So, PhD is a training, it really trains you how to think, how to do research. And a lot of companies out there need these kind of expertise, the ability to think, the ability to push through, the ability to make mistakes and make mistakes and make mistakes and learn again. And these are qualities that makes you excel, and PhDs are valued for that a lot in the US. And as Shashi was saying, if you do go into research right after masters, you can progress, but then you will reach a ceiling and you cannot go above that. To really go beyond that, you need that degree, and PhD is highly valued. So having that degree is something that's very important, and will definitely lead to some great jobs in industry, in research, wherever you want outside academia. uh, if you want to do in India, again, I think it's a booming market. A lot of our friends who pursued their PhD from India are also doing great. So really, if there is some hesitation, which I feel like was also among some of us, or if I do a PhD, then I'm really limiting myself. It's probably better to do an MBA or something else after my master's. I think that's not the case. If you pursue a PhD and you manage to do a good job, you manage to do you take a topic that's important, that's relevant, you will find a great job. And that's the bottom line. You will have a lot of skill sets, you will learn a lot of things, and you will end up in a place where you want to be.
Thank you, everyone. As Mr. Sushi was saying about internships and all, so here our first year students and mainly first year students and also second year students are very much confused about internships and how we would apply for them for the internships and all, where to do this and how to do internship in industrial field. So this is my question. So how to do this thing and all.
Okay, I can start with it, and then if Yusuf and Amit wants to add, they can. Yeah, so internship. So I think I would just say everyone should definitely try to get an internship. The reason being is that when we were in our college, I don't know how old is IISER Berhampur. How many years has it been in existence?
6 years.
Okay, so you have a batch who already passed out, so
Two
that's
batches.
good.
Two batches are
Two
there.
batches, yeah,
Mm.
two batches. So we were like kind of the experiment, right? We were the second batch at IISER Kolkata, and that time there were only two IISERs, and we were that big of an experiment that when we were traveling in train, we used to say that we are from. Some of us used to say we just qualified IIT, we are in a college in Kharagpur or somewhere, because no one knew what IISER is. Of course, I didn't do that, and but a lot of people didn't even know what IISER is, right? So the reason internship became much more important back then is because to even see what's out there, we were living in a really, really big, like a small bubble, like a bubble where none of the other like similar kids of our age also didn't know what IISER is. It was that bad of a bubble, and I'm glad that is not the case now. Now even in US and any other place, like a lot of people, everyone knows what IISER is because of the kind of students we have produced. So internships at that time was really important for us. And I remember in my first year, I didn't end up doing an internship. And I kind of regret that now, but at that time it was fine. I was at home, I chilled out for 3 months, did nothing. But in my second year, I think I'm sure these programs are still now. There were two very interesting programs available that time. One was IAS fellowship, Indian Academy of Sciences, and the other one was JNCASR. And these two were really popular back in the days, and I'm almost certain they should be still applicable now. And the reason why I like these two fellowships were, and there are multiple more for, and these two are particularly for India. And I think even as a first year student, you can apply for these. And also there are fellowships by individual IISERs, right? Like I remember I did my second fellowship, like first internship in my second year at IISER Mohali. And so when I went there, I was in my second year. I still hadn't chosen my like stream of study, but I kind of knew that I don't want to do physics or biology. I was almost certain I'm going to go into chemistry, and so I chose like a computational chemistry internship. And after 3 months at IISER Mohali, I was 100% sure that no matter what I do in my life, I will never do computational chemistry. Yeah, so that internship helped me a lot. And then when I chose my next internship, I was sure I needed to go for some more lab work in chemistry. So I went to an internship IISc Bangalore through one of those IAS fellowships. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time at IISc Bangalore. First of all, IISc is the best kind of science, like the premier science institute in India back then. And I still believe it is one of the best, right? And uh, there I was exposed to a different world, like all the PhD students. There were no undergrads in IISc at that time. There was no undergrad program. So I interacted with a lot of PhD students. I worked in a very like kind of proper lab for a first time. There were labs in IISER Kolkata, but it was all being set up at that time. So when I went to IISc Bangalore, I was like really introduced to a whole new world. And then I was sure that okay, I do need to stay in a kind of experimental chemistry. Like even though computational chemistry is really good for job and everything, I still wanted to stay in experimental chemistry. So my suggestion to you is that please try to look out for internships, and it doesn't matter if you do an internship in an industry or not, because in US the industrial internships are very common. There's a norm that the industries have internship opportunities for undergrad students, but back in the days when we were undergrads in India, I was not aware of many industrial internship opportunities in India. And unfortunately, I don't have that exposure that I can comment on it now. But maybe that situation has changed. But what I can tell you is that even if you do internships in industry, in like academic institutions, you can choose a different field and a professor, because say if you like computer sciences, but in IICR there's no computer science field, but you can choose to do, if you have the skills, you can choose to do an internship in ISC through the IES program in a professor who is like a professor of computer science or who is a professor of mechanical engineering. Because I believe if you know physics, then it will be very easy for you to know everything else. Personally, that is only my personal opinion. So I have some friends who are physicists who were doing undergrad in say St. Stephen's College, and they were working in a like a mechanical engineering, like hydraulics lab in ISC, and they did really great. They applied the physics in that lab, and they ended up with good opportunities. So definitely look out for internships and try to explore as much. You don't know what you like doing until you try, or kind of try it and then show it to yourself that okay, I still like doing this, I know I don't like doing this. So it's good if you start looking for it right from the get-go, like I mean from the first year itself. Yeah, that's all I had to say.
Yeah, I can add a couple of things. So absolutely, internships are really important. And as Shashi was saying, whether it's academia or industry, please do internship. From my own experience, my master's thesis was in seismology, but I did a couple of internships in hydrology, and I liked it much more than the work I did in my master's thesis at IISER. So that was a big motivation for me to pursue a PhD in hydrology in water resources. And also I had that background from those internships, right? That showed my future advisor, my PhD advisor, that I have done work in that field and I could excel there. And I think that's very important, that when you all have summer vacations, you try to find something and don't only think about big institutes or, try to get big projects, even if it's something small. Uh, do it continuously. A lot of us went to the same professor year after year, and it really helped them a lot to A, publish a paper, B, get a good PhD and and grow up their career. So there is no right or wrong answer. Just keep trying, keep applying. I know someone who just applied, emailed 20 different professors in Europe and USA, and he got interviewed by 2 or 3 of them. Just random sending cold emails, like, hey, my name is XXX, I'm doing this. Obviously, this is better for third or fourth year student because, generally first or second year, you still don't have that level of experience that a professor from other country or a big university will hire you. But if you have done some internship in the first year in India itself, then you have a very good chance of applying to these professors and getting the job. And both Shashi and Amit know one of our friend would keep sending these email, and we'd end up with really nice internships in Canada, in Europe, and wherever. So it's very important to keep trying, keep looking, not only through the channels like IAS fellowship or the DART fellowship or the MyTax, but also just keep sending emails. Hello, how are you, sir, can land you a very good job. So that's something very important, that keep trying. And please, I cannot emphasize it more, that use your summer wisely. It can really make the difference. Even if your GPA is not very high, But if you have some really good internships that can result in a paper or good experience, you can either end up with a good job in India or can land up with a very good PhD somewhere. So these are crucial times, and use them wisely, and keep trying. You will find something.
Yeah, I would resonate with everything my friends have said here. Le- um, so let me talk about internship, but I would also like to take a step back and sort of organize some of the data points we are throwing out there, right? So insofar as internship is concerned, I think internship is important, to first know whether you at all like research or not. And I think we are talking about research internships, right? So let's be real. It's very hard to find, let's say it's very hard to do a BSMS in India and suddenly, find an internship in Google doing software engineering stuff, right? You may find your internship in Google doing some research stuff, right? So to be, slightly sort of like channel this discussion, let's assume that we are talking about research internships. So why are research internships useful at BSMS, like first year, second year, third year level, right? A, to find whether you are at all interested in research. B, to find what you may or may not be interested in. So as Shashi mentioned, he realized that computational chemistry is not his calling, right? I similarly realized that cosmology and astronomy is not my calling. I always thought that I wanted to be, astrophysicist, cosmologist, but I realized that's not going to be my calling, right? So we all have stories like that. And thirdly, I think internship is a very good way to build your network. Now, where does that network come in handy? To get recommendations letter, and those recommendation letters are going to be the most important part of your applications if you choose to do your PhD, right? Not in the industry as much, but especially if you want to do your PhD, those recommendation letters are going to be very important. A, because it's going to come from someone with whom you work solely on research. It's going to diversify your pool of recommendation letters, right? So you may get one from IISER professor, but if you get one from some other university, it just diversifies your applications, right? And also the person making the decision gets more data points, like more diverse data points, so they can be more confident in their decision whether to accept you as a PhD student or not, right? So those three things. Now, if I take a step back, and the discussion is what to do after BSMS, right? So there are a couple of things that you can do, right? So one, you have to decide for yourself, and no one else can make this decision, whether you actually like doing research, right? For me, the answer was yes, right? I was never of the opinion that I never thought that I would want to join industry, and a PhD is just a way to get to that industry. Like, that was not my thinking. I wanted to do research, and I was open to the idea that ultimately I may end up in the industry, right? Even through my last years of PhD, I had the same opinion. So you have to decide for yourself whether you like research at all. And if you like research, then we can talk about research in the industry, research in the academia, and what's the best way to go about it, right? And PhD may be a good way to go about it. If you're convinced that you do not like research, and ultimately you want to find a job in the industry, which has got nothing to do with research. So it could be like, financial modeling for a bank. It could be, for a hedge fund, or like, doing data science or anything, right? Or joining a venture capital firm, right? For that, PhD research is not important. Like, you don't need a PhD to do that. Having said that, I would say strategically, someone may make the decision that, okay, I want to work in US and I want to get a visa to work there. And PhD is going to make that come true, because like PhD gives you a visa, makes you open to a lot of opportunities out there. You will experience a different country, and maybe you would be lucky enough to exploit some of the opportunities that come your way, right? So that's a strategic decision someone may make, and that's perfectly valid, that PhD may be the easiest ticket for you to move from India and go to a Western country where you may have more opportunities and better economic prospects. But that's another thing to think about, right? I'm just saying that to sort of, organize all the thoughts that you may be having in, you know, my subjective way of thinking it. But yeah, that's it. I don't know, Sashi or Yusuf, if you agree, disagree, or like if you want to add
Yeah,
some
no,
more.
totally agreed. I think if research, yes or no, that needs to be answered. That is the big question. Uh, I think half of our batch, they maybe 20, 30, we were a batch of 70 folks, and maybe 20 people or 30 people didn't go for PhD. And all of them are in a good place right now. Honestly, they are. And they started working in and doing a job years before we did, and at a higher levels even now. So that is something to think about if you don't like to just put hours in the lab and working aimlessly sometimes to achieve a goal. So that is a big question. I think that is the most important question, whether you like research or not.
Exactly. I mean, just to reiterate, the only reason, so if you don't like research, the only reason I can think of going into a PhD program is to make your immigration to a different country easier. If you know that you don't like research, period, right?
If you're doing a PhD outside India, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then it follows that you shouldn't be doing a PhD in India, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep, agree.
yeah. Like,
Yeah,
don't go into PhD for future economic prospects, or like if you're sure that you want to do whatever, like you want to join a hedge fund or you want to join a VC, like PhD is probably not the right call, unless you want to make your immigration like that aspect easier.
I mean, a better way of asking this question, Rudrajit, would be to really, to categorize the people in whether when they talk about PhD or internship, is it in India or outside India? Because Amit is totally right. When you do a PhD, it's a research journey and it is very tiring. A lot of PhD scholars go through periods of hardship, periods of depression, challenge. It's a challenging journey. It molds you, it modifies you, it changes you. So if you are doing a PhD because you like research, excellent, you will come out of it. But if you don't like research and you just want to leave India, and find a job outside the, in Europe or in the US, just do a master's, master's in data science, master's in your field, or whatever you want to do. There is a lot of opportunities and you can end up with a very good job, a high paying job, and make good money. Yes, your immigration will be a little bit challenging, but other than that, most of Indians who come to US are either they come on H-1B on a company transfer from Wipro or Infosys, or B, they come to do masters, where the number of PhDs is much lower, and they all end up with decent jobs. So the question is, as Amit was saying, you need to ask yourself what you really want and what is your end goal. And if you have an answer for that, you can really decide what you want to do. And I know a lot of us, you would be thinking that, oh, we already did masters from IISER. Why should we do a master's again? Believe me, it will help you. Even in the same field, if you did a master's BSMS in physics from IISER and you do a MS in physics from a US university, you will learn a lot. And if you do a master's in something else, like MS, MBA combined, or MS in data science, or MS in anything else, it will be a totally new experience. And people who have done that have actually risen a lot. I know folks from IISER Pune who did masters, and they are now working in big banks or in hedge funds or whatever, at a very high level position. So it's not the end of the story that, okay, I've already done one master's from India, I don't want to pursue another master's. You can. And in some case, if you don't like research, you should. That's probably the best way for you out. So, if you have follow-up questions, just send it to us. And I think the answer is more individualized depending upon the person. But at the end of the day, it's your call. If you don't like research, I would not recommend going into the PhD track. It's not, and I think both Amit and Shashi are nodding their head. It's tough and it's challenging. That's it,
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, if you don't like research, don't go for PhD. Yeah, with masters, again, if it's in a completely different field, you may have to pay for it. It may be worth for you or not. You make your individual call. But again, if you do get into a PhD program, again, you can drop out with a master's. Like, it would be It would be most likely in your field, right? If you do get into a PhD program. So if you're doing chemistry, if you're a chemistry major, you may get into a chemistry field, but knowing that you don't really like to get into research, you can drop out with a master's degree, right? And seek a job. So that's one strategy. There is also the flip side to it, right? So don't, maybe PhD is not the right option if you don't want to get into research. The flip side is, let's say you like research, but you are not really sure about the life in academia because it's challenging, it's very uncertain, yada, yada, right? I would say, give PhD a shot. There are a lot of options after PhD. So don't be afraid. So don't go into PhD if you know for a fact that research is not the right way. Don't avoid PhD just because you're not sure about the economic prospects or your prospects in academia. If you like research, PhD will open up a lot of opportunities outside academia as well, right? If you so want. So those are the two things to keep in mind. Yeah, I think I'm happy to answer all the questions that we have collected, but shall we just open this up so that people can or so that it's more conversational? And
Oh,
people can also pinpoint if they want to choose, nominate any of us to answer it in particular.
Yep, agreed.
yes. So if
I would like to ask Mr. Sasi, if it okay.
Yeah. Ask.
Sir, I would like to ask that you tell us that you are working in the semiconductor field. And I think that the semiconductor field in India I think there has been some investment, but as of now, the situation is very poor and it has failed very miserably. So do you think there is a future for this in India? And if what, and in what direction we are going?
Yep. Yeah, maybe a request. So agreed with the initial request. Don't call us sir. Just the first name basis is good, and will be good if you tell your name also when you ask questions, so that I can kind of address you. Yeah. So good question. I keep reading Vedanta is making, and there's an Indian semiconductor consortium now led by our Prime Minister. I saw this news also last year. So yes, it's very, very challenging. Opening a fab is a multi-billion dollar investment and very challenging, especially in a country like India, which is like in the tropical region, because there's a lot of dust in India. Like if you, doesn't matter where you live in India, if you leave the door or windows of your house open, you will need to take a broom, sweep it next day. If I'm correct, you will have to do that. I had to do that growing up in like Jharkhand, right? And dust is the biggest enemy of a semiconductor chip manufacturing process. The labs which we have currently here are classified as a clean room, like say 10 labs. So that being said, theoretically, of course, there are many. So in a box cubic feet, one cubic feet box, there'll be like 10 particles which you can detect apart from the natural existing particles. It has to be that clean level, and high investment in like ventilation and cleanliness of the lab to make chips dust free. So I agree that it is challenging, but that's the next. Like India has to produce semiconductor chips to sustain. It cannot be just buying chips from China and India. On a bigger scale, like gas used to be the commodity back in the days, right? All the countries which had gas say 100 years ago, they are like rich now, and I think the future is of semiconductor. So India will find a way to make some, even though it has failed now, but I think there are a lot of invested interest and a lot of like vested interest for money and security purposes for a country to have fabs in their like country. I hope it succeeds so that people like us and a lot of other people who are outside of India, because of the sole reason that our job doesn't exist in India, have an option. But I can't speak to the specifics of what is the current state. But when I open the website of the Semiconductor Consortium, I see only positive things. So you say that it has failed. Maybe I need to brush up on my news. But it is a challenging job. That's all I can say. So, yep, Amit, you are.
So I can speak to your current state. So you may not know it, like you guys in general, like McKinsey has semiconductor and advanced industries practice, but from business standpoint, right? So our interest is in identifying the opportunities from business standpoint in terms of like demand and supply and all those things, and working with industry leaders or also helping existing companies come up with their own business, right? I can say for a fact that we have done a lot of due diligences over the last couple of years, and semiconductor sector has been one of the most important sector, especially because of this chip shortage. I don't know how many of you have heard it, but if you have tried to buy a car in the recent years, the car prices are very high, sky high. And the only reason it is so is because of the chip shortage, is because there aren't enough semiconductor chips available, right? I can go into the details of like slowdown in China and all those things, but it's true. All cars, especially, with now automobile industry in moving into, self-driving cars and all those things, semiconductor has become really important. Like it's becoming, you need a semiconductor in your refrigerator, you need it in your car, you need it in like the buses that connect to all the other buses so they can be they can be on time and all those things. So we are going through a silent semiconductor revolution, right? US recently has invested a lot of money. Intel has received a lot of money. I know that for a fact, but billions of dollars have been invested, and it trickles down. It has trickled down into Germany, where a lot of basic research is there. It has trickled down into Taiwan, right? It has trickled down into China, where a lot of fabrication takes place. And India is well poised to take advantage of that. So in fact, Tata is exploring very seriously of creating a fabrication center in India, because if you don't have semiconductors, you would be limited by your ability to move in automobile sector, to move into like IoT, Internet of Things, and all those things. So semiconductor is becoming very important, and a lot of countries are realizing that they can't rely on China and Taiwan particularly, because we don't have our control over their domestic policies and even international policies. I mean, who knows what will happen if China decides to invade Taiwan in a couple of weeks now, right? So it's a very hot field to think about.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, I hope that answered your question. But yeah, let's hope India succeeds. That's what I hope for, honestly.
Yes, it answered my question. Thank you.
Hi, my question is for Amit. So I'm Ashwadi. I'm a PhD student at IISER Pune. So immediately after PhD, say you want to land a consultant job, what are the ways to go about it?
Sure. Again, I am not particularly familiar with the situation in India, but all the big, at least BCG and McKinsey have a path for PhDs to join consulting. McKinsey has this program called Insight, right? So you can come out of PhD and join as a generalist consultant in McKinsey. That's one way, but that's not the only way. All these consulting firms have realized that apart from generalist consultants, you also need expert consultants, right? And your expertise could come in the form of data science expertise. It could come in the form of a sector expertise, right? You could be expert in semiconductors, right? So there are these paths as well. And the best way to find out about them is to go to these websites. And, so two things: go to the websites, try to find, PhD role or whatever. There are a couple of resources I could point you to. I mean, Reddit is a good resource. It's evergreen. There is Fishbowl. You can see the chat about like all these jobs in various companies, and you can get to know the rumors. And LinkedIn, like, just find recruiters who are recruiting for, if you're interested in consulting, for example, find a recruiter who is recruiting for McKinsey and write to them directly. Find people like us, write to us directly. And I mean, I'm giving a consulting example because you asked a consulting example, but I mean, this is more general. Like if you want to find a job in Google, for example, find someone who works in Google, who has some overlap with your background. They would be receptive to your questions. Write them an email. find a recruiter who recruits for Google, tell them about, your background, see if they are interested, if they know of any job opportunities. That's the way to go about it.
Okay. Internships, like, are they useful in that case?
Internships are useful, but I never did an internship in the industry, so I don't know about it. But internships are useful because if it has a lower bar for entry, uh, that's plus, right? It's easy to get your foot in the door. Secondly, if you do a good job, you get an offer to return the following year, or however. So internship has all the upsides, none of the downsides, and you get paid well for 2 months. So so everything going on for internships. Again, similarly, you have to just Google and try to find these internships, talk to people.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I add to that answer? Like, it's like from a personal experience, what it's only specific to consulting. So when I was doing my PhD at Yale, so a lot of students there wanted to go in consulting, and the platform just didn't exist. It was like a void. And just to think about that, all the big like in consulting firms are in US, and PhD students were struggling to find intern consulting jobs. So what someone started at Yale is called a graduate student consulting club. So I'm just giving you an idea, maybe if you can branch of this idea to do something in India as well. So they started a club, and it took like a year or two for the students to get it started even. What they did is to reach out with consulting firms like BCG, McKinsey, and all the other folks, and just try to gain from them the kind of consulting problems they get. Like, say, a question like Amit works kind of knows more. Like he mentioned about he did consulting for semiconductor, right? So they just try to get introduced to the world of what questions a consultant and a firm gets, like a project wise. And what that club now does is that annually they organize two consulting kind of competition where PhD students form a group of 5 people, and they are given a problem statement, and they do a research for like a month, like hardcore consulting kind of research, like what are the metrics, what is the like usually consulting questions can be something like, hey, how do you foresee a semiconductor company X is going to open up in India, what are its chances of success? Just a simple, but that kind of exercise kicked off like crazily. Like that club is now a full blown activity. And personally, from my lab in PhD, I have 5 friends who are in consulting, and all 5 of them did present in that club once or twice during their PhD career. So my point being is that maybe in your institute, or this is an idea maybe you can implement in India. Go look out. Is there an option to form a club where you have enough people who are interested in consulting, and then can you reach out to companies to and by so the people who are winners of these competition, they have something on their resumes even, like, hey, I took part in the YGCCL Graduate Consulting Club, and so on and so forth. And you just get to know the kind of questions they did. And now that club is all like in its glory, then they have like kind of a panel comes from like big companies and all that. But this is something which I experienced during my stay at Yale, and I was really amazed by kind of the challenges they even face as consultants. So just one small note.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to add something based upon the questions I've been answering on the chat. So a lot of you are asking about internships and about, I have a background in theoretical physics or I have a background in biology. There are two things you should be very cognizant of. And the first and the most important thing is you are studying, right? And the way a lot of us, when I was in your steps, I was doing the same mistake. When we present our resume, we show ourselves as, okay, we have a degree in biology, we have a master's in biology. Don't show that. Show what skills you have. If you have worked in biology, if that's your master's project, but you did a lot of data analysis in that work, show it. People and companies especially are looking for skills. What skills you have, right? And that's what you have to show, to the companies. They are not gonna read through the lines, oh, she did work in or he did work in certain fields, so he must or she must know this thing. It's very important to rebrand your CV, rebrand your resume, and cater it exactly what's asked for. Someone asked a question about engineering physics. I mean, if you are in engineering physics, I guess you are good at data analysis. I guess you have done some work, in engineering and some work in physics also. So show that you have these broad skill sets and highlight them, and you will get a job based upon those skill sets. So it's very important to highlight, what skills you have gathered and sell that to the company. If you just say that, you have masters in some a specific field, the HR is not an expert in that field. They might not understand, what you are talking about. If you clearly, a well done resume can lead to a lot of jobs. And I think, one thing, if you all have already not done, is to have a resume workshop where, you teach how the students can develop their resume to fit a particular job. And I think that's very important. When I was applying for jobs after my PhD, I realized that if I modify my resume, I'm the same person with same experience, just a tiny little bit, I can get job offer from a lot of different companies. I work in research right now because I wanted to, but just based upon my resume, based upon my experience, I got offers from different companies who have nothing to do with earth science or climate change or my research, but they really liked my expertise in research or my expertise in data science. And I think, when we all talk about, especially from a job point of view, it's very important to change from that academic knob to a knob where you highlight your skill sets. And that's very important. Otherwise you can apply to 100 jobs and you will face the same struggle that, oh, no one is calling me for interview, or I'm not getting any calls. It's not because you're not good. It's because you're not presenting what the HR wants to look for. So you have to present them what they are asking for, what the job description says. And that's very important, to take care of when you're applying for jobs.
Yeah, I can pick some of the questions that were directed to me, slash, I assume they were directed to me because they involved data science questions or something. Yeah. So again, for data science, obviously you don't need a PhD, right? Does having a PhD make it easier? I think, yeah, in a way, because like it's like, appealing to authority, right? If you have a PhD, then you are taken more seriously, I assume. I don't know for a fact because I haven't been on the other side where HR is looking through initial resumes. But as far as your day-to-day job is concerned, do you need a PhD to do your day-to-day job? Absolutely not. Like, do you need to study physics? Absolutely not. Like, you could have studied economics and, you would be good for data science. Can you code? Can you think logically? If those things are, if you can check yes to those questions, then yeah, you can do data science. I mean, it's not a big deal. So you don't need to study physics or think about PhD to do data science. Does it make it easier? Maybe. I don't have a yes or no answer to it. What else was there? Sorry, I'll pause and look through, but yeah, feel free to ask any questions and others can take in the.
Hey Amit, I'm Aditya. I'm from IISER Thiruvananthapuram. So I would like to know what are the opportunities available in this kind of aspect which I will describe. Where, like, let's say you are doing something in pure mathematics or a pure in a very pure research. I mean, a very pure subject, like pure, like probably you're, let's say you're doing something in topology. So are there any applied parts where you can do applied research on that? I was looking through this and I found some areas of computational topology, and they use topology to analyze the shape of data. And I was wondering, since you have done something in this field, you would be very appropriate to answer this question. Thank you.
Yeah. I can sort of answer that. So let me answer it in two levels. So first is taking a step back and answering it in more abstract, right? I mean, and the more abstract version of this question is that I am studying X. What are the job opportunities available, down the line, right? I think it's, yes, if you're studying X, you can do research in the industry related to X. That's always going to be true, right? So if there is industry, but it's hard to predict how the industry will be, 10 years down the line. So to take an example, I mean, my first job out of PhD was in data science, right? When I was a first or second year student at IISER back in 2007, 2008, data science did not exist as a field, right? So no one could have told me that you are going to end up in a data science, or data science is going to be such a big employer of PhDs. But it ended up being. Back in 2007, 2008, the world was going through a massive recession. There was a financial crisis. And we are sort of in the same situation. And out of the financial crisis, it wasn't clear what the world is going to look like, what kind of opportunities in finance you're going to have, how the technology is going to develop. No one had any idea. And it just sort of organically happened, and people organically adapted into things. And we ended up where we are. I think it would be very premature for us to sort of say that these are the opportunities in the industry that are going to exist 5 or 10 years down the line, right? Data science as a field that it is now, it may not exist. What I can say for a fact is there will always be demand for people who can be logical, who can solve problems, and who can be adaptable, right? So that is always going to be true. Now, so if you are open to the idea of working in the industry, which potentially may not have anything to do with your field of study, I would say think of your journey in BSMS, in PhD, as, developing your personality and training your mind to solve problems. Because ultimately, whether you do consulting or finance or what have you, you will always be solving problems, new problems which others haven't seen before or solved before. So it's like a training, your entire journey. So that's sort of more, abstract answer that I can give. Specifically, you asked about topology and data science and all that. Again, I would say that data science and machine learning and AI, these do have niche topics, which have a very big overlap with esoteric things that you may study in academia, right? So for example, there is an overlap between topology and data science. You can look up videos from Institute of Advanced Study in Princeton, and they are doing a lot of these things. I think Google is doing, so Google may hire you, for example. Great. If you are going deep into machine learning and AI, Amazon or Google or Facebook may have a need for you. Having said that, 95% of the work that you do as a data scientist in the industry does not require advanced algorithms or advanced mathematics, but it does require non-trivial solutions. What I mean by that is ultimately you are there to solve problems, like, find ways to creatively solve problems which make sense for your given industry or for your given employer, right? If you go in there thinking that I'm going to apply all the things that I've studied, you are being too rigid. Like, you are there not to boil the ocean with all the, sorry, I used a phrase which you may not be familiar with, but it's like you are not there to apply all your skill sets to solve a problem. You are there to solve a problem and potentially develop a skill set if you don't have it to solve that problem, right? So that's where the industry lies. And I can say for a fact that most of the problems that are out there in the industry, they are simple problems, but does not mean that, they need smart people. They need people who can think logically. And the solution may look simple, but you need because ultimately, and here is my personal prediction, I think data science is going to be automated, right? You will have a link in the Excel which can run the models for you. Like you will have a button on the Excel, you download all the data and it will be able to run all the things for you. Look at what ChatGPT is doing. It's automating all the code writing already, right? So if you pre-align yourself with like, oh, I'm going to do this narrow thing and I'm going to focus on it, it's going to be very hard for you to adapt in the future, because who knows what's going to happen in the future. But if you're open-minded and you're adaptable, you don't have anything to worry about. So sorry, maybe that's not the answer you were looking for, but that's my honest opinion.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Any further questions from the audience? Any further questions?
Yeah, I had one question. I know you guys didn't pursue biology, but could you tell us a little bit about people who did do biology? What kind of things are they doing now, or what kind of scope there is in biology?
There are a lot of biologists in McKinsey, I can tell you that. They are doing consulting.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. So one thing I would like to just say, personally, I grew up in India, like I think almost every one of you, right? I think one misconception or one kind of which I believe I saw growing up and while I was in PhD, masters also was that if you do a PhD in India, maximum you can do is be a professor. And what I realized the moment I left India is that if you do a PhD, the minimum you can do is to be a professor. And I stand by that statement because that's what I have observed after my PhD in US. And so you asked about what about biology. So definitely, if you have a PhD or a master's in biology, like people need biologists. Like almost like now you see last 10 years worth of Nobel prizes. In just look at the Nobel prizes in chemistry for last 15 years. I think pure chemistry got a Nobel Prize only maybe 30% of the time in the last 15 years. Almost all the other Nobel Prizes were if it's either biochemistry or you did something utilizing both biology and chemistry. So biology is essential to, I think, just like any other sciences, it is essential to humankind, right? You need to make medicines, for example. You cannot just make medicines if you are extreme awesome chemist. You need to have an understanding about the physiology of the body, right? So that's where it comes in. And I think sadly, one of our friends from our university, whom I assumed was the best biology person in the world, is not doing in academia anymore. I'm mentioning to Narendra if Amit and Yusuf can understand whom I am mentioning to. But he gained a lot of his skills doing a biology PhD, and he works for company who analyzes and he developed a lot of like models to understand his biological data, like kind of a like deep dive into data science. And now he is in a industrial research, but he utilizes all of his skills which he developed during his PhD as a hardcore biologist to understand the data he was getting from his devices and like his experiments. A lot of my friends who are in biology are still actively doing postdoc in biology. So one thing which I would mention is that in my personal view or in my circle, what I've seen is that biology postdocs are usually extended postdocs. And the prime reason I believe is because a lot of data turn takes time in biology. Like if you're working on a sample, my one of my friends was working on a sample and he was studying like kind of genetics and stuff, and he had to go to a remote area to even get that biological sample, and he could do that only twice a year. And so just believe that his data turns was kind of different. Like so his postdoc, he's actually still in his postdoc since last 4 years, but now he's like a senior fellow in his postdoc, but he enjoys what he's doing. And I'm sure that the moment he decides to go into industrial research, he will land up a job. But he's happy where he is, and he's doing like just basic biology in the lab, and he's fine. So I think there are a lot of options for biology, both in industrial and in academia as well. But in my personal opinion, postdocs can be a little bit extended. So that is one thing which I have observed. Like maybe chemist postdoc is like 2 years, biology postdocs are easily 3 or 4 years. That's what I've seen. I don't know if it is close to what answer you were expecting, but uh, that's
So,
my.
so let me try to give a non-trivial example, just to exemplify that, you have to sort of like open your horizons, like, be more creative in trying to think about what options could be there, right? And if you have already thought about it, great. But here's an example. How many of you are familiar with this Elizabeth Holmes saga? Like this thing that happened, like it was a big fraud. She claimed that you can use a drop of blood and do all kinds of tests. Just show of hands on, use the reactions button to show of hands. Okay, I see a few hands. Okay, great. So basically, it may help to just give a 1-minute summary of what I'm talking about. So this was the company which what was the name of the company? I forget. But this was a company.
Theranos.
Theranos.
Oh, Theranos, yes. So this was a company which was claiming to do almost impossible biology and chemistry, right? And raised a lot of funding. At its height, it was valued at $7 billion, right? Now imagine a situation, a VC, if they had a biologist on their team to call the bullshit out. Imagine the difference it would have made. So many people wouldn't have lost their money. You wouldn't have to wait 14 years to figure out that they were a fraud. And it's not me thinking about it. VCs are actually thinking about it. What some of the biggest, venture funding that is being raised today, and like future is already moving away from sort of software and silicon and moving into healthcare. So some of the biggest companies that with the potential of growth are already in the healthcare sector, right? So they may be in the pharma and very core biology sector, or they may be in the services sector. In both these sectors, they're raising a lot of money. But these VCs, which are actually writing these checks, they need someone to understand whether what these founders are pitching actually makes sense or not, right? So imagine as a biologist, if you are interested in an intersection of biology and business and calling out bullshit, right, which is essentially the training that you get in research, you would be a good fit there. Now, that's just one example. Of course, you can do data science as Narendra is doing. You could also do consulting, right? And help pharma companies, help hospitals, right? You could work with a pharma company in a wet lab. You can work with a pharma company writing proposals, as one of our juniors is doing, right? So options are always there. A part of the trick is to actually be imaginative yourself and sort of, advertise your skills. So like think about like the companies may not know how they can use you, but if you can figure it out for themselves, you have already done half the work, right? So be open-minded. Sorry.
No, actually, very good poem, Amit. And that reminds me, I have a friend. She is a biology PhD and like cell biology, and she's currently in a law firm. Like she works for patent law, and that firm works for patent law, and they receive hundreds of applications each year related to a biology patent related to a biology, and lawyers don't know, like they can't figure out if it deserves a patent or not, right? And so she got hired in that law firm. She's earning as much as lawyers, but because she's helping them out figure out, like, find the bullshit in that hundreds of patents. So there you go.
There are a lot of physicists doing patent law as well. And the good thing about patent law is you just need to know the patent law. You don't need to go through the entire law degree.
Bar
right?
exam, yep.
Yeah. So for the bar exam, you just need to know the patent law, and you can earn as much as the lawyers, right? And because of your background, you are uniquely positioned. Like there is a lot of demand and no supply, so you are in a great position.
Biology is the most common undergrad in the US, if you guys don't know it, So again, biology is something that a lot of students in the US study, and they end up with really good jobs. And, as both Shashi and Amit are pointing, and I've said it earlier, it's all about how you sell your skill set. Shashi's friend, who is in a law firm right now, she thought, out of the box, that, okay, where can I use my skill set, right? I am a biologist. I have a PhD or master's in biology. I want to get a good paying job. Okay, I can apply in that law firm, where they can use my skill set in evaluating patents related to biology or healthcare, or whatever it is. So really, it all boils down to A, how much confidence you have in yourself, and B, how you sell your skill set. Eventually, your PhD thesis or your master thesis will not lead you to a job. You will not work in exactly the same thing. You have to realize that the world is very diverse. There are a lot of different kind of jobs, and you can switch. I know people who did a PhD and are now in a food startup. They're running food startup just because they saw there is a huge opportunity there to serve vegan food in the US. There is a growing demand. More and more people are trying to eat healthy. There is a market opportunity, and you divert into that. You switch there and you work. because you, for example, if you have an MBA, you know how to manage a business. It's just starting a totally new business. So bottom line, we are already way past time. So I would just say, focus on the skill sets you have. If you are not going in academia, no one will bother reading your 20-page CV or 8-page CV, whatever you have. What they really care is what skill sets you have and how you present them. And if it fits them, they will call you for an interview, they'll call you for a job. And from there, it really depends upon you, how you perform in that interview, how you talk with them, how you present yourself to land up with that job. It's really, focus on confidence building, focus on skill development, and you all are really smart student out there. You will end up with great jobs, so that's the bottom line.
Thank you so much for all your answers. Thank you.
So any further questions from audience?
Hello, sir. I just wanted to ask a question. If a person who is interested equally in physics and as well as biology, so if he wants to pursue a future in like soft matter physics, which has equal knowledge from both physics and biology, like what is the scope of that field in the upcoming future?
Scope within soft matter.
Like how can it manage both biology and physics in equal manner? Like if a person is interested in both the subjects.
Yeah. So you identified what that intersection is called yourself.
Sure.
Like, it's called soft matter, sort of, right? So soft matter, especially when the soft matter is a biological organism, requires you to have good knowledge of biology and good knowledge of physics, right? If I assume that what you mean by the scope is scope in academia and scope outside academia, well, scope in academia is there. It is much more easier to get faculty position as an interdisciplinary professor, right? For how the economics and academia works. So definitely, if you're doing something interdisciplinary, you have really good scope to stay in academia longer and even become a professor, right? Particularly if you are interested in PhD, do look up Brandeis University. That's where our mutual friend was doing his biology PhD, but they are really good at the intersection of physics and biology. Also look up Caltech. Scope outside industry is also immense. I mean, but there are all these manufacturing companies which are doing like high-tech manufacturing. And I mean, that's not directly my field, so I can't speak a lot to it, but like look up 3M is like one company which sort of hires a lot of people who are at the intersection of biology and physics. I can also sort of think about or even find out more about it, talk to my friends.
I mean, a lot of universities actually offer degree in biophysics, master's or PhD. Just look it up, I mean, that's probably, the way to start, look what degrees are being offered in the biophysics course. I think UC Berkeley has some intersection, between both the fields, and they offer some degrees in biophysics. Just look it up. There is interdisciplinary is the way to go. No one likes, no companies, no academic institution, no research organization like someone who is single dimension. If you have multiple dimension, if you can do a lot of things, you can work in a lab, you can run experiment for 10 hours, you can also do data analysis, you can also write research articles, you can also present. That's what companies, that's what academic institutions are looking for. So it's good that you're interested in both the fields, but you really have to decide, where you want to go. And biophysics, a lot of universities offer masters or PhDs. Just go look it up, do some research. You all, we can share our emails with you all, and you can always reach out to us or to other alumni from the IISER network, and just ask, find the right person. As Amit was mentioning, maybe Narendra is probably the right person right now. He did a work at
Ankur Shringi could be the right person. He studied physics and switched to biology.
So just reach out to the right person and talk with them, and interdisciplinary is the way to go. So if you like it, it's really great for your career, for your future. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, sir.
So
hello, how much GPA plays role in PhD application?
Can we collect all the questions right now? Like, can we have a string of questions so we can answer all of them at the same time? So I see a couple of more hands. So if we can go one by one with all the questions, because we are way over time.
So those who raise hand, please ask any questions if you have.
Hello everyone. Actually, I have a bit issue like what is the future in oncology in case of industrial sciences? I'm a bit doubtful in that. What will be the scope of oncology in case of industrial sector?
I would like to ask all the members present here that you have done the BSMS from IISER, no? That the same that we are going to do. So I would like to ask, what do you think that that what should we should focus on in the next 5 years, because a lot of things I think have changes from the time that you have passed. So if you can guide us on that.
I have a question about interdisciplinary sciences. I'm mainly interested in protein linker synthesis. So it actually allowed actually physics, chemistry, and biology, three of them. So is there also any opportunities instead of industrial, and what is the opportunity in that kind of cases?
Okay, so we heard 4 questions, and I think it's fair to assume that covers everything that people want to ask. Um, um, okay, so let me. The easiest one to answer is how much the CGPA matters. Well, CGPA, think of it as a threshold, right? Like if you have a decent CGPA, and that could be some number, like it does not need to be very high, but if so CGPA, think of CGPA as, does your CGPA raise a red flag? Like, does it make anyone pause and think, this person looks really interesting on everything else, but why did they fail all these courses, right? So as long as your transcript does not have those red flags, right, CGPA does not really matter, right? It's the threshold. If you clear that threshold, and that threshold could be whatever, like I'm not going to commit myself to a number, but let's say 7 point, right? So if you meet that threshold, that's it. Then no one looks at your CGPA, and people care about more important things, like what's your actual experience, interest, and is there evidence to back it up in terms of recommendation. So that's the CGPA answer, right? In terms of like very specific interests like oncology and protein linkage synthesis, I don't know a lot about it, but I think at least I can speak about US. I don't know about India, but in US, again, if you have studied those things, the pharma companies would be very interested in hiring you as far as the industry is concerned, right? It does limit you because, like, let's say, tech companies may not have any interest in you, but pharma companies surely will. So again, that's something I cannot speak to, I can't speak a lot more on that besides sort of those banal statements, but they are true. Pharma companies would like you. And BSMS, there was a question on BSMS guidance, which I didn't really quite understand. Oh yeah, so it was a question like a lot has changed since we went into BSMS. So what is the guidance for you guys? I mean, I personally cannot give you any guidance. I think like fundamentally, a lot of things are still the same. I mean, you're still studying basic sciences. You are still, I mean, I see I still have very high regard for basic sciences. I still think whether you want to work in industry or academia, I think studying basic sciences is the best way to go about it. It sort of, puts you in the sweet spot where you are challenging yourself to learn complex things, and you're learning about the nature. Like, what can be better than that? Like, I mean, even though I work in the industry, I would still think if I were to go back in time and do this all over again, I will still choose basic sciences to study and get a master's, potentially get a PhD, right? So I don't think fundamentally a lot has changed. And again, that's the advantage. The disadvantage, well, it's not a professional degree program. It's not like engineering where you're expected to be an engineer, right? But I think, look at it in a good way. Like you can be a professor, you can be an engineer, you can work for a tech company, you can work for a pharma company. So there are a lot of these opportunities. Of course, they are not going to be served to you on a platter. You will have to work hard for it. But that's the adventure of life, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't have anything more to say.
Agreed with Amit on all the points. Yeah.
Yeah. I would just add one thing to the GPA thing. Probably someone asked if he or she has low GPA, don't worry. Look, GPA is important, but it's not as important as, when we students, when you all talk oh, he's 9 point or she's 10 pointer. It is important, but it's not the end of the world. If you are a 7 pointer, you can still land a very good PhD. But yes, as chances of a 7 pointer is less, obviously, but you can supplement it with good research work, supplement it with good internships, supplement it with other skill sets that you can offer. So don't let a low GPA stop you from applying at top universities or to the university you dream about. Yes, a GPA less than 7, 6.5 becomes very difficult. But if you're 7 and above, you have a very good chance of going to a very decent college abroad. If you can show that you are really interested in that topic, you can back it up with research or internship or skill sets, and that's about it. Like, don't limit yourself. Don't think too much. Oh my god, my GPA is so low, like I'm doomed and gloomed, I cannot study anything, I cannot do nothing. No, it's not the end of the world, and you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. You can reset the button using other opportunities, like I said, internship or research experience or a research article. Now talking about the oncology, cancer is is probably one of the most funded for field in US. So there is a lot of jobs. Literally every big universities have a huge cancer center, and that's a separate center in itself. So there is a lot of research that goes in cancer. In terms of work, it's a lot of lab work. It's not very high paying, I have to say, especially if you work in a university setting. You are either a scientist, you're either a postdoc, you keep working. So there is a lot of work. Now, if you compare yourself, oh, as a cancer researcher, am I making same money as someone who's working as a data scientist or as a hedge fund manager? No, you don't. But there are jobs, and it's good paying jobs. It's not that high, but it's decent enough. And it's something that if you look from a different lens, from a social lens, you are doing something for the society, right? 1 in 3% at some point might have cancer, right? So you are doing something that's very, very important. Instead of maybe helping some company make billions of dollars, your research might help find a cure or a solution for something that the world needs a solution. So really, it all boils down to having that confidence and really taking that leap. And for the last question regarding BSMS, I agree with Amit. I don't think anything has changed. It's not 50 years, it's just 10 years since we graduated. And I am not aware of anything that has changed dramatically, either
it has only become harder. Competition has increased, right? So
yeah, with that being said, I will leave right now, and I would just like to thank you all for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to share my experience. I hope whatever advice, whatever answer I gave was valuable to you all. And I really want, and I think all three of us want you all to succeed in your life, in your career. Go there, enjoy your time at IISER, have fun, study, play hard. Don't think too much. Everyone, whether you are a 6-pointer or a 10-pointer, everyone that I know of is doing pretty good in their life. So be happy and enjoy.
Yep. Thanks all for the invitation, and hopefully you got to learn something. But do enjoy your stay at IISER. One of the golden memories still. Even now, when we talk amongst friends, that's what we remember all about. PhD part is vanished, but the IISER memory still remains. So do enjoy your stay there. World is, it will change once you are out of the bubble. So, and good luck to all of you for your future endeavor.
Completely agree with Shashi. Best years of my life. Absolutely. And I wouldn't change one thing about it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
all
sir.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Before all of you going, can I ask you one question?
Uh-huh.
Like where you are right now? Can I ask like I mean, many will be excited like where you are right now? Are you in India or are you abroad?
Oh, like
Yeah,
you asking? Oh, yeah, I'm in
yeah,
currently in US only. I'm in Oregon. So Intel has factories all over the world, but the development R&D part for the wafer production is only in Oregon, and I am a part of even a smaller group of that components research. So I'm based in Oregon in USA currently.
again. And what about you?
Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm not that far from Shashi. I've lived in several cities in the US so far, and yeah, I'm if that's what you asked, I think and Amit is probably in Boston or New York. No, he's in North Carolina, somewhere in North Carolina, I think. So we are all three in US. So it's morning for us, and I need to go and do some
Yeah,
stuff. So thank you so much for having us,
yeah.
and
Thank you all
happy
for
to come
giving your
again.
time. For taking your time from a busy schedule and be here. And I think all of us are very much pleased with this session. And thank you for this. Like it was very enlightening and enriching session. Thank you. Thank you for your
Good luck.
presence.
Thank you
Good
all.
luck. Yeah,
Yeah,
bye
thank
Good
you.
luck.
now.
Thank you
Thank you
all.
for all the attendee also. Thank you.
Mhm.
Wish we will meet again. Thank you. Thank you from IISc team. Thank you. Bye.